Hello everyone, welcome to Jolly Molly TV. In today's video, we are going to assemble section 5 of Kimberbell's Pumpkins and Potions ladder quilt project. And section 5 is the potion bottle here, this fresh spider cider, all the way down to the plaid block. We're going to assemble this section here. So let's go ahead and grab the remaining blocks that you have in this project, and I'll show you how to sew them together. And then we're going to assemble the entire quilt blocks. All those sections that you've done in the previous videos, we're going to sew the whole thing together. All right, you ready? Let's go. All right, we're ready to sew this last section together. So pull out your remaining blocks and let's put this in the order that we need to have it in order to sew this together. We're going to do the fresh spider cider potion bottle first, upper left. Then we're going to put the tree to the right of that. Then we're going to do the flying geese, and we're going to put it in the upper right with the geese facing the tree, pointing toward the tree. Then we're going to put the got silk block right underneath the tree and the potion bottle. Then we're going to put a filler block over here underneath the flying geese, just like that. Okay, now we're going to put the last candle block underneath that. Oh, this is looking so cool. Then we're going to do a little bit batty just to the right of the candle, and then we're going to put the plaid block next to that. Now, if you remembered when we created the plaid block, I taught you how to do 2 blocks with this L-shaped. See, I've got the mint green and the purple on the outside on the top, and then there's white on this like checkerboard section right here. This is the time that you can actually flip this and do it like Kimberbell has, with the L on the outside edge and the white block in the upper left corner. So that's the way I'm going to position it. Isn't this cool? This is going to be fun to sew together. You got this. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to sew the potion bottle to the tree. So I'm going to pull these 2 down, and I'm going to kind of scoot everything up a little bit so I have a little bit more room to work here. All right, so we're looking at the potion bottle and the tree. Okay, so we're going to stitch these 2 together, and I'm going to take the cider potion bottle and I'm going to flip it and put it right side down on top of the tree. This is your sew line. Okay, so we're going to sew this together. We're going to line it up, and I'm going to use my Clover clips, or you can use pins. I just like Clover clips because they don't poke and stab me. They're nice to me. They don't cause me pain. There you go. So that's what we're going to do. I have a bobbin with white thread down below, and then I have a neutral thread or white thread up on top. You can do beige, you can do ivory, you can do white. Just keep it a neutral color. Alright, so now, let me get this going there a little bit better. Now we're going to stitch this. I'm going to take the first clip off, and I'm going to put the needle on the fabric, not off the fabric. You want it on the fabric. I also have my 1/4 inch foot that has a guide on the right, so all I have to do is keep the fabric up against that guide, and it'll give me a nice 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I'm going to stitch a couple stitches, and then I'm going to back tack, which means just do some backward stitches that will lock those in place. And then I'm going to just stitch forward, keeping the fabric up against that guide until I get to the clip, and then I take the clip out, and then I'm going to continue on until I get to the next clip, and I'll stop the machine again, take that clip off, and I'm going to sew to the end and back tack, which means you go back to lock in those stitches and trim my thread. Okay. All right, that looks good. My fabric is pretty well lined up on the top and the bottom, so that looks good. Now, if you watched my other videos on assembling this quilt, I use a seam roller by Lori Holt to open up these seams. And that's to give me an edge when I go to the iron, because it will press these down enough that the iron can do the rest of the work. But that way I'm not trying to put my finger and then a hot iron right next to it. Use this as a tool. This is awesome. If you don't have one of these, I highly recommend it. This is a tool by Lori Holt. There's a link in the description below to Amazon where I purchased this. And I love it because it has a weighted feel to it, and it allows me to do this without having to put a lot of pressure on my arm or my shoulder to get this to work. So I love the Lori Holt design. All right, I'm going to look. Do I have any embellishments that might melt with an iron? Yes, I do on this. So I want to keep that potion bottle away from the iron. So when I put down a pressing sheet, yes, you need to have a pressing sheet for this. I put it down, and then I'm going to keep my iron away from that potion bottle. What the pressing sheet does is it protects the heat from going directly onto your embroidery and or potentially embellishments, but mainly your embroidery thread, so that nothing melts. Okay, so always use a pressing sheet when you are assembling a Kimberbell project on the back side, and then just pay attention to things like vinyl, clear vinyl, embroidery vinyl, glitter embellishments. You don't want to put an iron on that because it will melt, and then you'll have to create the block over again. So we want to avoid that. Okay, so I'm just going to press it down for 5 seconds or so on each section, keeping it away from that potion bottle. Come back and do it again for 5 seconds. And I'm not using steam on this. I just use a dry iron. And then I have a clapper. A wooden clapper is something that you can then put down and just rub back and forth to get a nice flat seam. And that actually flattened itself closed. So we'll do it again. There we go. That's good. I'll take it. But it helps flatten that seam, kind of like using a steam iron on it. So I love doing the clapper on my seams afterwards. And I tend to try to do it when it's hot so that I can use that heat to try to set that seam open. So that's great. So now we have those two together, and I can put that one back in its place. So now we're going to grab the Got Silk and those two I just put together. And that is the combination we're going to sew together next. Okay, so I've got the Got Silk, and I've got my fresh spider cider and my tree. So I'm now going to flip the spider over, right sides together. This is my sew line right here. So I'm going to grab it and turn it around. And I want to line it up. Okay. Using my Clover clips. If it's a longer block like this, I will try to line up each side first, so I can see where that's landing. And then I can put clips on the middle section. And then if you want to take a sneak peek, check it out. Do I have everything in the right direction? Yes, I do. All right, so now let's go over to the sewing machine, and we're going to sew this. I'm going to use the same technique as we did in the last one. Put the needle on the fabric with the fabric up against that sewing guide right here on the 1/4 inch foot. Just take a couple stitches and back tack. And then let's sew this 1/4 inch seam. You can stop at the clip and then take the clip off, or if you think you're fast enough, you can take the clip off before you get to it. It all depends if there's seams. If there's seams involved, then I actually will stop the machine to get that seam fabric underneath properly. But if it's just a straight shot like this one is, then I can usually do that. Take the clip off real fast. Back tack, and then cut your threads. Okay. Moment of truth. There we go. Everything looks right side up. Fabric is fairly level on one side. It's about 1/8 of an inch off, but it will be fine. So we're good to go on that. So I'm going to go ahead and roll these seams open. If it's only 1/8 of an inch off, it's going to get absorbed in your seam allowance, especially since the other side of the fabric was lined up. So I'm not going to worry about anything that's 1/8 of an inch or less off. If it's closer to 1/4 of an inch off, then yeah, you got to take it out with your seam ripper, undo all the stitches, and realign it and resew it. Okay. But anything 1/8 of an inch or less, like 1/16 of an inch, it's going to get rolled into the seam allowance and you'll be fine. Okay. Embellishments. I still need to pay attention to the bottle. So I don't want that iron going anywhere near that bottle. So when I press this one open, I'm going to make sure that I am below that potion bottle. Below it. Okay, so that half I now can press with my clapper. Okay, I can come do the other side. Make sure that's all open. Here we go. 5 seconds on each part to stay away from over here, which is where the potion bottle is. Okay. And then use my clapper on that last section. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. Just get it as flat as you can, so that way when you're all done at the end of the project and you're putting together your backing on this, that the majority of the bulk will be out of your way. All right. See, mine's not perfect, but it's flat in the majority of the areas, which is what I'm looking for. Okay, so even when I put my finger on the seam, it feels flat across, and that's what you're looking for. Okay, I'm going to put that section in its place. So guess what we're going to do next? We're going to do these two. We're going to sew the candle to the only a little bit baddie block. So I've got a candle on the left, baddie on the right. I'm going to flip the candle over. Okay, this is my sew line right here. So I'm going to turn that to the side and I'm going to line it up. This gets really enjoyable when you can see this project start to come together. All right, so that looks good. So we can go ahead and sew it. I'll just keep the camera view on this for this one because you know how to do it now. Make sure you back tack at the beginning of the block and the end when you're sewing this together. That will make sure that the blocks don't come undone in the quilt. I've had that happen to me, and it's not fun trying to fix it and sew that little hole after the fact. So just always back tack the beginning and the end. Okay, and that looks good. I'll take it. Like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect. Just do the best you can and line things up the best you can. All right, any embellishments I need to worry about? Yes. I have glitter vinyl here, I have clear vinyl there, and I have glitter vinyl there. So make sure I keep the iron away from those areas. Okay. Make sure it's flat as I can get it. So I'm going to make sure I stay on that seam and away from the glitter and the vinyl areas. Okay. Almost done, about 5 seconds or so in each area. Okay. Then I take the clapper and try to flatten that down. That one turned out very nice. I'm happy with that. Okay, and when you feel it, it feels flat. That feels good. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to sew these two sections right here together. Easy peasy. We make sure everything's going in the right direction. Everything's face up. Candle, battie's face up. Then we flip it over onto the spider. This is your sew line. So I'm going to flip it over and line it up. Okay. One section's a little bit smaller than the other, so I'm going to center it. So I'm balancing the shortage on both sides. If it's all on one side, you might have a problem when you go for final assembly. But if you balance it, so you see if I flip it over, it's a little short over here and a little short over there, then that will be in the seam allowance and you'll be good. All right, so let's take this over. Actually, I like to have the smaller piece on top. All right, let's take this over to the machine and let's stitch it. You got this. Needle down. Just don't forget to back tack at the beginning and the end. Okay, I'm going to stop when I get to the seam. Alright, take a couple stitches and stop again. Lift the foot and get that seam fabric underneath. I try to do that as often as I can. It's hard to do it sometimes on the bottom side, so I just try to focus on the top to eliminate as many bulky areas in the seams as we can. Alright, back tack. And cut. Okay. Ooh, look at that. That looks good. And just for reference, if you feel the seams through here, you can feel it, but it's flat. If you feel this seam here, oh wow, it's really bulky and not flat. That's why we do this. We try to open the seams as much as we can. Now, when we get to the plaid block, there's going to be parts where I'm not going to open the seam. If you watched one of my earlier videos, I pressed it to one side because the plaid block, there's seams all throughout that block. That's how it was created, with seams. Different fabrics, folding it over, fabric fold. So that is very, very difficult to press open. So when we get to that one, we'll probably be pressing it to one side. But in this section, we can actually try to press it open. I've got glitter vinyl here and here, and I want to keep away from that potion bottle. So I want to try to stay away from those areas. All right. 5 seconds again on each part. There we go. And I come over here and do the second half. There we go. You got this. You realize you're almost done with the sections? This is section 5. You have done such a great job getting to this point. Just amazing. All right. And then if you have a clapper, I will use that to try to flatten the seams. Okay. That looks good. Look at that. Amazing. All right, so you know what we're going to do with these. Easy peasy. Let's do the easy ones first. Let's sew these two together. The flying geese on top, the filler block on the bottom. If this is directional for you, make sure you got the top facing up. I'm going to take the filler block, turn it upside down, put it on top of the flying geese. This is your sew line right here. So grab it, turn it over, and then align it and attach your clover clips. And now this one, I highly recommend you double checking. So we're going to open it and take a sneak peek. Is that the correct direction that we want it to go? Yes, it is. If it's not, undo your clover clips, put it back in alignment with the geese on top and the filler block, and flip it over and do it again. All right? You got it. I just don't want you to get confused because the blocks are the same size. You want the flying geese on top and the filler block on the bottom. Okay? So now let's sew this. And don't forget to back tack. I always say it because I know for me, I forget a lot. It's like, oh, I didn't back tack. Gotta go back and back tack. Back tuck. Okay. And ta-da! There you go. So now let's do the seam. Get my roller handy. There we go. There's a couple little bumps in that. Not a big deal. All right. And there's no embellishments to worry about when we iron, so we can just go to town and press this down. 5 seconds or so on each section, give or take, approximate. Twice, there we go. And then I take my clapper. This part's down a little bit. There we go. It's okay. That's good. All right. Now, are you ready? Now we're going to do the plaid block. Plaid block, flip it upside down once you have the direction you want it to be in. If you wanted that white block on top, and if you're using the kit, you have black and gray here and here. Make sure you have that in the right direction that you want it sewn into, okay? So this is the way I want mine. I'm going to flip it up, put it down. This is your sew line. Okay, so I'm going to flip it. I'm going to line it up. You got this. You are so close to getting these sections sewn. Okay, now on this one, I highly recommend you turning it back over and you taking a sneak peek. Is this how you want this to be, facing up? And that's how you want your plaid block to be. The answer is yes, you're ready to stitch. The answer is no. Take your clips off, rearrange it, flip it over, reattach it, and take another sneak peek. Make sure you have this the way that you want it to be. Okay? Then I leave my smaller section on top, go to the machine, and we stitch it down just like we did before. 1/4 inch seam, and don't forget to back tack. I tend to go slower when I sew these blocks together. I'm not in a race, and I want to make sure that everything is up against that guide so I get a good 1/4 inch seam and I don't snag or run into anything. So I tend to take it this slow just so I do the job right. I'm not in any hurry. It's not a big race. So I can take a little bit longer sewing it together, and then hopefully I only have to sew it together one time. Right. Because I don't know about you, but I do not like ripping stitches out. It's not a fun thing to do. So I try to avoid it as much as I can. See, this is not really pressing open that well. So I'm just going to go ahead and leave this seam to one side. But I'm still going to press it and still go through the steps of rolling it, pressing it, and using the clapper so that this side will be flatter. Okay? There's no embellishments for me to worry about. I'll still use my pressing sheet, but I can go easily 5 seconds or more on each section. The plaid block just has too many seams to be able to get a good open seam press on it. So in that case, just press it to one side. Okay, then I use my clapper on it. That looks good. So when I put it down, I feel a flat seam. That's the most important thing. You don't want the bumpy and wobbly seams. You want them to be flat. So that is perfect. All right, so now I'm going to flip that up there. Doesn't that look good? All right, you know what's next? Yes, you do. We're going to sew this to this. And if you notice, my got silk is a little bit shorter. I'm not going to worry about that because it's still going to be in the 1/4 inch seam allowance. And I'll make sure that when I flip it. All right, so I'm going to head and take this with the plaid block, flip it over, and I'm going to use this side as my sew line right here. So I'm going to turn it, line it up with the left side, then line it up with the right side, and this side will move. This is just a temporary one. So now I'm looking at this and I see a seam that I need to nest. See this right here? You've got a seam here and a seam there. So this one is sewn to one side, all right, because it's a plaid block. I'm going to temporarily just open this side a little bit so I can line it up with the center seam on the one on the back, because that is lined up. And I'm going to put a clover clip right on the top of that. Now I'm going to take a sneak peek. Yeah, no, this line is not lined up to that one. So go back and do it again. I open each seam and then I line that middle of the seam up. Take another sneak peek. That's much better. The sneak peek allows me to see how far off I am so I can adjust it before I sew it. So this line is going to go look nice and straight into this line. That's what I'm looking at. So this one does not move. Then I can take the end one off and I can realign it and get the gaps out of this here. And I can do the same over here. And I've got a little bit more, but that's okay. That's going to line up flat there. Now, if I turn it over, this is where you can see my got silk is a little bit shorter in the fabric than it is on the other side. So I'm going to sew from this side to make sure that I am going to grab that got silk and not have it be missed underneath. All right. So if one of your blocks is a little short, sew this side facing up so you can make sure that that is getting caught nicely. If you sew it like this, it could slide off and you might not catch it. But if you sew it like this, you can definitely make sure that it's being caught in that 1/4 inch seam allowance. All right. So let's go ahead and go back to the sewing machine cam so we can sew this. Okay. It's the same technique as you've been doing. It's just going to be a little bit heavier and a little bit bulkier. Okay, so I'm going to start and back tack. Okay, here we go. I'm going to stop when I get to the clip. Stop. Now this is where the two seams want to meet. Okay? And make sure everybody else is still lined up. I gently take off that clip. I use my finger for just a second till I can get that fabric under the foot. One more stitch. There we go. And now I move my finger out of the way because I don't want to sew into my finger. And I'm going to go. Okay. Now I'm at the part where the got silk block is shorter than the other backside block. But I can see that this black and white stripe is up against the guide, which I want it to be, and it's still going to catch that block. Okay? See, that way I can see it. If it was underneath the bottom side, I couldn't see it. So I'm at the next seam. I put that seam fabric down, and I just continue stitching. So whenever you're short like that on the fabric, just flip the block up to sew it so you can see that shortage, and you can make sure that it gets caught in the seam allowance. That's how you allot for that. And back stitch. There we go. Okay. Are we ready to see how it did? Dun, 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 dun. All right. Yeah, I'm happy. This is like a 1/16 of an inch off or less. I am not going to worry about that. That to me is a good seam. Yes, it is. Okay, so we got one more thing to do, and that is to do the opening of the seam. This again is the plaid. I'm not going to fight that. But I will open these because they're fairly easy to do. Yeah, that one's got a little bump there. Opened. There we go. And a little more. Okay. So, any embellishments I have to worry about? Not in that section. Nope. Okay. There we go. You got this. You are so close. Doesn't it feel great, though, to see this project come together? And the fact that you did it, you made this, that is what's just awesome. It's like, I did this, and look how amazing it is. Okay, now this is one I'm just going to literally seam press to one side. I got to do the clapper on the other. Yeah. Okay. So now I can clapper this. And then we turn this over and do a little bit there. Okay. Like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect. The main goal is that you're eliminating the bulk of the bubbles in the seam. You can feel it. It's perfectly flat. This one you can feel just a teeny bit because it's got the seams. And when those seams meet here, that's okay. This one right here, I need to press down. It's a little bumpy. Just watch your embellishments when you do that. Okay. All right. Oh, upside down. Now let's see what we do. There we go. So you have nice flat seams. That's what you're looking for. More than anything else is nice flat seams. Look at that. You did it. You just sewed together section 5. Okay, now we have the best part that we've saved for last. We are now going to sew these 3 sections that we've made over the last 3 videos together. We're going to make the main body of the quilt. Are you ready for this? Okay, so I want you to get the first section that you have. which starts with keep calm and carry a wand and has the ghost in the upper corner. Then we go down, has a chandelier, happy haunting, and the spooky potions block. Okay, scoot that up on your table. Then I want you to get the next section, which is a 4-patch, the number 31, the owl, and it goes down to ghost have the real spirit, and the candle. This one for right now we're going to call the second section. This lines up right underneath here. See this? Make sure you have this in the upright position, meaning these are facing top. You don't want them upside down. Once you have them in the right position, we're going to flip this second section onto this first one. You ready? Flip. All right, so I can bring it back down. This is your sew line. This is your sew line. All right, we're going to double check it. I've got keep calm at the top, potion bottle there. Everyone's right side up in the right direction. Okay, flip it back over. This is your sew line. Okay, what I'm going to do just for a second is I'm going to put 2 clover clips in this. That tells me that's my sew line. So now I can easily flip this over. I can fold it down, and now I can line this up because this is getting a little bit bulky, but nothing that we can't handle. Okay, so I take one off, and I'm going to line the 2 layers up so that they are together. Together. Sorry, I'm off camera there for a second. All right, now I want to come down here, and I want to flatten this out. That'll get any extra fabric in between, and then I can definitely line the rest of this up. There's no seams to nest. Yahoo! Isn't that great? Okay, so now I'm going to turn this to the side. I have the shorter piece facing up, the longer piece on the bottom. This is so cool. Okay, I love looking at this. All right, so now we're going to go to the sewing machine, and you know what to do. We're going to do the same thing. Put the needle on the fabric, stitch forward, back tack, and sew everybody down. I'm going to leave the camera on this image so you can kind of see how I manipulate the fabric without having one of those sew steady tables. If you have a sew steady table, use it. It's wonderful because it keeps everything flat. Otherwise, if you have a table where your sewing machine can go down into and give you a flat surface, that's great too. I don't have that in this setup, but I will be getting that shortly. I'll be getting a sew steady table to flatten this out because this will have a lot of drag. So I'm going to use my left arm to help keep that drag from making my 1/4 inch seam go off kilter. We don't want that. Okay, so I'm going to put this down. Got everybody lined up. I'm going to take off the first clover clip, and I'm going to secure my stitches. All right, so the first part I can actually drive with my left hand. I'm just going to keep the fabric up against that guide, and then I can start to feel the pull. So then I come under here, and then I'm going to support this with my left hand. I can actually grab onto one of the seams underneath that's upright, and then I'm going to drive it with my right. And then I'm going to get ready to stop when I get to that seam. Right there, okay? So then I can go ahead and make sure that fabric from the seam goes underneath that foot. And I can come back here, grab a hold of another seam underneath, and then drive with my right hand. Okay, and keep driving. It's getting off until it gets a little pulley, and then I come down and I can reposition it. And now I can hold it with my hand and my thumb down here at the bottom because I'm getting close to the end. Then it's a little bit easier to control. Now I'm at a seam, so I'm going to take a couple stitches and get that opened seam fabric under my foot so it'll sew it down. After all that work trying to, you know, have the seams go open, I don't want the sewing machine to accidentally flatten it if it's on this top part here and I can control it. It happens on the bottom, happens on the bottom. I can't really control the bottom part, but I can control the top part. Alright, and back tack. And cut my thread. Alright, so this is so amazing. Look at this. You did it. I have to show it sideways because my table isn't big enough this way. Isn't that cool? Alright, you know what we have to do? We have to deal with the seam that we just stitched on the back side. Okay, so I'm actually going to fold this over and fold this over to give myself a little bit of working room here. Get my roller out, and I want to do the same thing that we have done to all of the other seams in this project, is try to open them up and roll them out, or put them to the side if you have to get this as flat as you can. This is a little challenging because I got a bump from the other seam, but I can do it. Same thing here. There we go. And then this is not so bad. The hardest part with the seams are when it meets other seams, because you have extra bulk from the previous two seams that are coming together and then the seam that you're trying to flatten. That's the hardest part. But do what you can. If you can't open them up, then literally press them to one side. Okay? Any embellishments to worry about. I've got the owl and the spooky potions. So I want to try to keep this iron away from these two parts, which will be kind of tough, but we can do it. So pressing sheet goes down, and I'm going to use the point, and I'm going to just come in. So I'm not on that potion bottle, and I'm not on the owl. Okay, then I come over and I do it this way. It's really important that you try to avoid pressing directly on an embellishment, because you don't want to melt that embellishment after all the work that you've done to stitch this. And they're right there, so it's a very narrow area to get that iron in, but you really need to pay attention to that, because again, you don't want to melt those embellishments. I can't say it enough. That would be something you would cry. Say no when you have to redo a block. Not only redo it, but you got to take the old one out, redo the block, and then sew it back together. All because it got too hot. So if you get anything from these last 3 videos, it's do not iron near an embellishment of any type, whether it's clear vinyl, glitter vinyl, metallic threads, gauze, anything along those lines. Just stay away from those items with an iron. I'll do the rhinestones. I'll do sewing the beads on the chandelier and adding other rhinestones throughout the block. I will do that at the very end, because I don't want to potentially, number one, have like the beads snag on another block, or get in the way when I'm sewing something together, but I also don't want it to get melted if I have to worry about where the iron lands. Okay, so that's cool. All right, so now we'll do the drum roll here. You've got the section 1 sewn to section 2 up against the wall here, sewn to section 3. Woohoo, look at this. And then sewn to section 4. You're rocking this. Okay, so now I'm going to put this up a little bit so you can see it. Whoop. Ha, it's a very good roller. Rolls right off the table. Now we have one more section, section 5, which we're going to add to this block. Isn't this cool? I am so excited to see this finally come together. It's just amazing. All right, so I'm going to move this a little bit. So I have Ghost, Have the Real Spirit, and the candle. I'm now looking for the potion bottle and the flying geese. See this section right here? Okay. This is going to get sewn to that. All right, so I have everything facing the right direction. Everything's facing up. So I'm going to take this potion and the flying geese and flip it over and put it on top of Ghost, Have Real Spirit, the 3 ghosts, and the candle. And I'm just going to mark this temporarily so that I know that this is the part I'm working on. This is the sew line right here. Okay, so now I can turn this to the side. I'm going to take a sneak peek. All right, I'm in the right direction. Everyone's going to be facing upright. Fold this over, and now I'm going to line this up. A little bit more challenging. Let's do it that way. Okay, so I'm going to line up my end. Move that there. Are there any seams to nest? No. Yay! Seams are a little bit of a challenge. So when there's no seams to nest in, I'm like, yahoo! All right, so now I can kind of line it down. Make sure I'm looking good. A little bit more that way. And then a little bit this way. Then I can flatten it. Do I have any excess? Nope, we're good. Want to make sure the distance between the clover clips is all flat. All right, that's your sew line. Are you ready for this? You can do it. Flip it sideways. And now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to stitch down here, put the needle in, back tack, and sew this all down. Just make sure when you get to a seam that you stop. Make sure you can get that seam fabric underneath the foot. Then back your finger away and make the rest of the stitches. All right, let's do this. I'm gonna use my left arm, flip that up a little bit to help maneuver it so I can control it a little bit better. And down we go. Ready? Make sure you got the needle on the fabric. Here we go. And back tack. And here we go. Remember, I'm going to stop when I get to that seam. Right there. Okay. Raise my foot, lower it back down, so now it's on top of that orange seam. Take a couple stitches, take out my next clover clip, reposition my arm underneath to support it, and then away I go. Really need one of those sew steady tables. Okay, and then stop it at the clip. I have a sew steady table for one of my sergers, but I need one for this singer. Okay, so I stopped at the seam. I'm going to raise the foot and put that seam fabric underneath. Move my finger away, sew a couple more, and we're good with the bulk, because now the bulk of the quilt is off the machine bed. So it's not that much of a struggle now to control it to stitch the last part of it. Now I was saying I have a sew steady table for my serger, but I need one for the singer. Oops, back tap. This is my go-to machine for assembling quilts because it's much smaller footprint and I have more room to manipulate the quilts to sew them together. My dream machine is rather big. It's a beautiful machine, but it is a rather large footprint. It would actually come out all the way to here. So then I don't have that much room to show you the quilts. All right, enough about that. Are you ready? The moment of truth. Yeah, that looks good. It's in the right direction. Everything looks good. So I'm going to fold it up just a little bit so I can come back here and work on this last seam. Okay, put that flat out. This is the last seam of the main quilt. When we get to borders, we'll have a few more seams to open there, but this is the last of the seams of this main part of the quilt. Isn't this exciting? Dun, da, da, da. Realize this is video number 30 in this project. We have come so far, gone such a long way to make this amazing project. And I really hope, of course we still have a few more videos to go, but I really hope that you found this video series helpful and that you've been able to enjoy making this project by Kimberbell because of the videos. And that's what I really, really hope. I really hope that this has helped someone out there make these projects that wouldn't have done otherwise, and that it exposes them to this wonderful world of Kimberbell that was unknown to them before. So that's my dream. That's my hope. All right, guess what? We have to avoid a potions bottle and avoid the glitter vinyl here from Ghost or the Real Spirit. So I'm going to do kind of a hokey pokey press here to avoid that potion bottle. But no, so I really, really hope that people have enjoyed this series. We still have a few more to go. I'm going to teach you how to do borders. I'm going to do an inner border, which I can't wait to show you. And then the outer border. It's going to be amazing. And then we'll be done outside of the embellishments. Yeah. I got to avoid this candle here. So I'm going to put the pressing sheet down. A couple bumps there. And avoid the candle, because that's got glitter vinyl on it. Alright. That one's not 100% open, but that's okay. Like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect. Just do the best you can. Then I'll do the center here. There we go. And this one, I'm good. I just got to stay away from that glitter vinyl. Okay. Unplug the iron. And do the clapper on this last one. Okay. Put that to the side. Move the iron over. There we go. Are you ready for this? I'll take it in the other room and take a really big picture of all of this, but I have to show you what you have done. Look at this. Look at all this beautiful quilt. Look at that. You've done it. You have now sewn together the entire main body of this quilt. I just think that's amazing. Look at this. I have to show it again. I love looking at this. Just love it. Look at all that. Absolutely amazing. I will definitely put a big picture out there with all of this. Just so much fun. Congratulations! You did it! So I hope you had as much fun sewing this quilt together as I have. We still have some more videos to go. We have an inner border, we have an outer border, and we have the embellishments. I'm going to show you some little tricks of the trade on how to do the embellishments. We are almost done, and this is an amazing project. So please stay tuned here on Jolly Molly TV for the rest of the videos in this series. I hope you had fun today, and I hope to see you soon. And until then, take care and happy stitching. Bye-bye.